What's good, agents? Welcome to the 13th episode of the TCG Core podcast. We will change this name, I promise. I just gotta decide what it's gonna be. We have like 10 in our Discord channel here that we just can't make up our minds. And by we, I mean me. Anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. As always, I am joined by Dan and Frolly. What is good, fellas?
Everything's good. Everything's good.
Yeah, man.
How has y'all? Oh man! So before the podcast, y'all, we was as usual shooting the shit, and as always, they're always talking bad about how I mess up the intro. Sometimes y'all see it, other times y'all don't. Other times we leave it in. This one probably got cut out.
Yeah, you've gotten better at actually making sure we don't get the pre ones. Like if you get one while we're going, well, that one's on tape. But like the pre ones, you got better about waiting for the record.
Oh yeah. We just gotta wait, get it all out first, and then hit the button. But I know we got a lot of stuff that we kind of want to jump into for Digimon in particular, because I feel like a lot's happened since we last kind of convened, at least recording anyway, because we talk all the time. But does anybody want to start off talking about BT16 and like any of the deck ideas you may have? Y'all know I've said it repeatedly on stream. I'm in the BT17 waiting room, so like I'm half-assedly paying attention to BT16. I do have a deck idea, but I'll let y'all go first.
I've actually got a couple BT16 decks already loaded up. I went and got my locals had a box, so I was able to go got the set in. So I got a couple of things and started putting some ideas together. I do feel like this set compared to last set and then BT17. I won't count EX6 because that's always an extra set, but like the subsequent and previous sets, surrounding it does have less in terms of like total fleshed out decks. I feel like I did get a couple pieces for like my Seraphimon deck. You guys know I love, Yellow Angels and all that. So it was fortunate enough to get that. But the one big thing that came out of 16, I feel like, and I've seen it everywhere now, is Imperial. Imperial has kind of made this resurgence, which rightfully so. We get the Ace and the new Paldramon super rare in this set is insane. So like and of course you got all the other little pieces between the different levels and stuff. It's really, really good. I don't know if I'd go through building it myself. I have a lot of Imperial pieces kind of scattered throughout everywhere. I've built it and unbuilt it so many times over the years. But I do think this current iteration, just with all of the pieces now from all past sets and everything, is definitely the best, of course. But it's definitely a deck to watch out for. So I think between those two, ramping up my yellow vaccine deck technically is that, and then Imperial are the two that I would say for me are the two I'd be most excited for.
I think this set was really interesting because I think value wise and like investor opportunity, it was one of the better sets in a while. 2 jackpot charge to chase, some really cool like other ace slots ones to hit. In terms of decks, if we want to start off with that, like I like that what you said about incomplete decks and then feeling like other decks are getting more support. There was like a whole X antibody line for Leviamon if you were building that. Here's a couple extra pieces for Lugamon, which were like just kind of there. Here's like Ukamon finally getting like it's his own thing. My only personal thing that I'm interested in building in this, and I think I've talked about it, is the Pulsemon stuff. But shout out to Evo Cup because that's now got us the promo Palmon. And what I think is really cool, and talking about spicy text and stuff, is like Palmon allows you to tuck a Digimon with Shoutmon as text underneath and activate a when digivolving effect. And all the new Pulsemons all have like if you have 3 or more, if you have 3 or less, do effect, do other effect. So it's really cool is you're gonna be able to get that with this rookie that could have like a level 5 inheritable or like when digivolving effect go off when it's swinging, which I think is really cool. Adds to like kind of the rushiness of the deck. Gives it its own kind of fleshed out thing because Pulsemon is kind of falling into yellow vaccine. It's like we can utilize the tools like you should be utilizing the tools. So I like that. Not only did this set come out, but like the event supporting the event like gave us a really critical card for like a couple of the decks. And then we got X antibody bunnies. They can't seem to make a bunny deck that is fully coerced, like goes together. But I'm glad that they keep trying because like I like that the rabbits. So people complain that the rabbits don't go together, and I think about it more like Vmon, where Vmon has like Magna, has armor, has like all force, and you could even like put in Paldramon on that level. And that's what I feel like they're doing in this way, where it's like, no, I think it just has different building potentials. I think it just goes different route. So like some is just for Terriermon, some is just for X Antibody, some is the Cherubi stuff. So, and I think yeah, I think set wise, Magna feels very strong playing against Magna. But hey, like it's good to have another $1,000 card to be chasing, eh? I saw it get pulled out of an adventure box today. 4 packs, $1,000 card.
Yeah, to your point earlier, like the investability of this set is actually really cool to see because like I felt like I haven't seen that in Digimon in a minute, just where there's so many. Also, I think it helps because like this set is like, here's all the flagship Digimon from season 2 that people know and love for the most part. So that's I think is really good, and I think it's a good kind of setup for the next couple sets because even EX7, right? It is 7 or 6, I can't remember, but the next EX set, there's a lot of like angel stuff, dark angel stuff that like is kind of like fan favorite cards, is really cool. And then we roll into BT17, which again for me is like, yes please, all the BT17 is like protagonist heaven. And so that will be really fun. I think for me deck wise, I kind of want to do something weird and bring back Yellow War Greymon with all the yellow red stuff now that you have access to. Like the Sylphiemon's even really cool, like to use as level 5 as the ace. Valkyriemon's really cool to use as like an alternate level 6. So yeah, I'm tempted to try and build. I have it in .dev. I don't know if it's gonna be trash or not, but it seems like it could be fun because you can do Marcus shenanigans, Geo Greymon shenanigans. So I just want to bring it back because it was one of my favorite decks back in BT4 when it first came out. So trying to find some reason to use it again, even though it's clearly better megas. I just want to use it. It's Greymon.
Oh, yeah, no, I like when you can breathe old life into something, or you get the idea to start tinkering again. I hope some of these like random armor forms like end up finding a home in like certain stuff, instead of just kind of being like bulk that we find later. Yeah. It's like like Manta Raymon or whatever. Like, I hope it actually gets used in something. Maybe like aquatic decks can use it or something. But no, I think 16 was like the launch was good. I think the art was phenomenal. Like I mean, I think it was a step above like a traditional one because all the tamers are gorgeous, especially in person. 2 jackpot cards, though it's a crime that the movie poster one's only like 200 American. Like that's, come on, it looks so cool. You get the 4 aces that you could have gotten the alternative arts, and like I think Tyrant's the most expensive right now, but like they're gorgeous. I think this box had a lot going for it. So I feel like people were very down on like BT15, especially because of the ban list and stuff. Like we've had like a big lull. So I'm hoping that this set being one of the first sets that's not touched by any list currently kind of also like had people more invigorated to like invest, and like we kind of know where the game's going a little bit more with the coming together and like linking up our timelines.
Yeah. Well, we get not, I don't think so much in 16, but EX6 if I'm not, or it was actually, yeah, it wasn't BT16, but we get like the new keywords partition, right? Which we already kind of saw that mechanic in I know Agent really likes to run like the DNA Omni deck, right? We already kind of see that type of mechanic, but they've actually labeled it now, right? It's partition in that sense. So like to Prolly's point of like seeing where the kind of the game's headed, and if you look ahead, you know, the next, just like we were just talking about EX6 and BT17, we get a couple more. They introduce barrier. They're in the next starter decks. We see fortitude. There's a couple other like keywords that are also coming out that's just kind of like building on this thing. And I kind of hope it's like there's always going to be those problem cards or like the things. Okay, we didn't expect it was going to do this, so now we have to kind of recalibrate. But it's cool to see like them building out this game to be like, okay, there's just so many more interactions, that having these sets that don't give us complete decks, but like we were talking about, kind of give just extra pieces to old decks. It's kind of like cool because it doesn't just be like, okay, I got a new Metal Greymon for my Greymon deck. It's like, oh, I've got this new card that now has this new keyword that can kind of change up the direction of the deck. So I think it's okay for these sets, because I didn't want to come across that I was like talking down. I just don't. I think to my point is that it just didn't seem like there was a lot. Like usually when you get all these new like these sets, it's like, cool, I get like 3 or 4 decks out of this, because it's like a whole thing or whatever. Whereas this one, like you said, there's like a couple things for this and a line for that, and so on. It's like, you know, you look for the next couple, like to Asia's point, like EX6 and BT17. I'm going to be eating good with Diaboromon, right? Because we get a line for each one of those, but it's not a whole Diaboromon deck. So it's like it kind of gives us players something to look forward to know, hey, these decks that we've wanted to, and to Asia's point, wanted to bring back like Yellow War Greymon, like we can probably do that because these new cards that we didn't have not just access to those cards, but these type of mechanics didn't exist, and maybe now it can kind of, you know, reinvigorate those decks. So yeah, I think it's in a good spot moving forward with, you know, with these next couple announcements of sets.
I mean, you get yellow vaccine toolbox too, because I'm pretty sure that Greymon is vaccine, or like all four Greymons are vaccine. So you can abuse that with everything else. I like your point though. Like, this doesn't feel like when they did the Shine Greymon support, which is like over the next 3 boxes, we're going to give you a little bit of this deck and a little bit of this deck, and you're gonna get it. Yes. Or like a Leviamon. Leviamon felt like, here's Leviamon, here's Levia X, like very clear. What I liked about this one was, it was like, oh, Phoenixmon, like we did that deck a little while ago. Here's an X antibody line for it. Oh, the bugs haven't been eaten too good. Let's do Tyrant, and Tyrant can kind of go on any bug deck, and that's a really exciting deck to do. So I'm glad like these feel like decks that have rested for a while and really need the invigoration. It doesn't feel like I'm just like, well, my deck gets better later, so I have to buy this now and play this worse version, and then it'll get better.
Yeah. That's what it definitely felt like with Shine Greymon, to your point. Like, you know, in the first set and 2, it's like, cool, I've got the Shine Greymon deck that I know is going to be busted by the time everything comes out, but it's like I'm sitting here waiting, you know, 6-7 months before I can finally, like, you know, get up to par. I'm just looking over this really quick because I've got the sets up here. In EX6 we get the new Ragna stuff. We get a new Ragna Ace. So you know people of old, it's like when you're playing Ragna back then, it was a very, you know, linear, very kind of mono style of just playing the game, because it was so early in the but now we've got aces, we've got DNA Digivolve, we've got all this other stuff that now Ragna can now utilize, right? So it's kind of cool to see that, and all these new keywords and end of turn effects and whatever else. So yeah, to be able to pull back some of these old decks, it's like it's cool that, you know, people who have those connections to those certain archetypes or whatever can still kind of, you know, keep their decks fresh, and then it just obviously fleshes out the meta even better, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit. As someone too, for me, who loves older cards. I mean, this just seems to be a thing for me in any game where you can pull from history and there isn't a rotation. I love when they make sets where it's like you can just the doors of deck building really start to open up. And I feel like with Digimon, like in the past few sets, really kind of since 13 onwards, for me at least, it feels like that's become more and more true with all the dual color cards. So you can start like mix and matching some really weird stuff and really just experimenting. Or like the cards that evolve and they just require a name. They don't care what color it is. It's just like, oh, it's a Garurumon. Cool, it can evolve into this other thing. I think more of that has been really helpful for the game, and at least for the deck building side, and really making it so that you have to really, when you're playing against somebody, you don't really know for sure, oh, okay, their boss monster is this or this. It's like, it's this or 10 other options. And that doesn't even include aces. I mean, Dan remembers, it took me forever when we were playing to remember, oh yeah, he can go into an ace when I swing here. And I feel like that pool getting bigger is only better. And I think once we have the ace, because it's not this set, no, it is a set where we have the ace DNA Digivolutions, right? This set.
No, that's the Ragnar and the
Okay.
Yeah, EX6, because you get
Mustang, thank you.
Mustang and Ragnar,
having that next set's gonna be disgusting. In a good way. Like, I think it's gonna be really cool that you can really open up the door to just more powerful and intriguing level 6s and 7s, and how you get them out. I think that's gonna be really, really interesting. Pain in the ass, but interesting.
I mean, not to get too far ahead of it, but like, I don't know how many games you guys have been getting in recently, but with BT16, is there anything already that you feel like either you know is going to get hit, or you feel like it's likely to get hit, like whether or not you agree with it? Like to give you guys like a moment to think, after playing so much of the simulator, especially recently, where like cardboard is no option, you know, you can kind of like play any deck you want and test it out. The promo Ukomon feels extremely strong, and I love that it's raised all these decks. Like, I'm glad Red Hybrid is getting stuff. Like, I think it's healthier when we can like inject it, but I wonder, my thought about it is like, I feel like it'll get hit because people complain about it, but it's one of those things where it's lifting up so many decks. I wonder if they might just keep it for now, Where it's like, this isn't a problem. Like, until like Ukamon breaks the deck, I don't think it'll. But like, this is the first one on the radar that I've heard like the most murmurs about. People are like, oh Ukamon, like.
Yeah,
My perspective.
I'm glad. No, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been playing a fair amount of games on DCGO, and I do feel like every other game that I play, there's some type of Ukamon in it. It's a different deck, but it's some kind of Ukamon. Which again, obviously the card is insanely good. There's reason to run it. I mean, just about anything. I will make the comparison, and I feel like this is not a good thing to do, but you kind of have to when you talk about like ban lists or limited cards or whatever. I'm going to talk about like another card that could go in any deck, right? And lifted all these decks up and did the exact same. We're talking about the exact same thing. Mega Digimon Fusion, right? So when you think about them together, Ukamon does not do for any of the decks that it's put into what Mega Digimon Fusion would be doing right now if it was still legal in the format, or even limited at 1, regardless, right? Because the all of the crazy level 7s that you have that you could do and play for free and all this other stuff, like it would be it would be in a completely unhealthy game. I don't think personally. I agree. I think Ukamon is more of an annoyance than it is a game breaker. Personally, I don't think it's something. It's one of those things where it's like, oh gosh, I got to go against this, and then they're going to push out, and then they're going to get all these effects or whatever. But I think to your point, Frawley, I think it's actually a good thing that it's been able to breathe life into some of these decks that all it really needed was an Ukamon, right? To like gain those a couple additional benefits to keep extending their play. So I don't think the card's so broken that it's like it has made any one deck just completely tier 0, can't compete with it, nobody else wants to play anything else. To where it's like that. But also to your point, if they were to hit anything, I do think it would be Ukamon, because it's the only like completely versatile card that's come out that's like not specific to one deck kind of thing, where like, yeah, everybody talks about Magna's good, but there's ways around it. Like it's not unbeatable. Where Ukamon is like, no, you can put this thing in anything and it's just busted. So
it's even funnier to bring up limited, just to like tack on a quick point, is like, I feel like if they put it to 1, it goes in every deck now.
Yes.
Like it's weirdly enough, like if you take it from 4 and you put it to 1, it goes in every single deck.
Yeah, to me, Ukamon is the biggest pain in my ass. But it's also not such a pain where it's like, get this card out of the game. It's just like, oh god, no. Between that and the freaking Nuamon deck. But I don't think it's like worth hitting. It's just frustrating to dealing with. But for me, so far, I haven't seen like major red flags where I'm like, oh man, like this just feels broken. It feels like it's really strong, but there are ways around it depending upon the deck that you're playing. And that's the thing I like so far about this set, and then even in BT15, is that everything feels very everything can do a lot, right? Like there doesn't feel like, at least in the games I played, there's a beat if. It's just there's just a lot of good decks running around. And it's going to take some skill and just good decision making to kind of get around dealing with those. I think even with like Magna, people bring up, for us War Greymon players, you just raid. That's you just get really big. You get to like 20k plus. You're just gonna swing into you a couple times. Have fun. So that's really cool, because I think Magna X is a really good card. But to your point, Dan, I don't feel like it's like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, and it's going to terrorize the entire format. Because I remember people saying the same thing about Shine Greymon back when it came out, of like, Shine Greymon's going to be this, it's going to be that. And it was a pain, but it wasn't nearly as doom and gloom as people were saying. And I think that goes back to something we said last month in our last episode, people getting too wrapped up in what's going on in Japan, and then extrapolating that to here, not realizing that's just not how the games are played. That's just not how it's going to work.
Yeah, slinging cardboard different from coast to coast.
Yes,
yeah. And I think it's different when a bunch of people who, like, I would say us here, who don't really play the typical meta on purpose, we spend a lot of time figuring out, like, how do we break that meta? And there's a lot of people who do the same thing. And when you know everybody's going one way, you're just going to go the other way. And I think that's what really disrupts that whole mentality, or that whole kind of like doom and gloom scenario people like to throw around.
I think I actually want to touch on that real quick. It's going to be kind of a tangent, but you brought up a really good point about like breaking the meta, and like you have these circle of players that like play off meta things for that specific reason, and it makes me think of like my days of playing Pokemon. I'd go to these Pokemon regionals and I'm like, man, all these top players are not playing your top 3, top 4 decks. It's like, why? And it's like, but then on top of that, they still end up in day twos and your top 16s and your top eights, and it's like, I wonder why. It's because they spend all this time, and it's like, and then the argument's made, well that this top deck still made it into top 16 and made it into top 8. It's like, well, yeah, out of a field of 1,800 people were playing it, like of course one's gonna make it's probability, right? But when you think about, okay, well, there's such a small percentage of people playing this deck, and it still made it in versus, you know, the vast majority is playing da 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 da. It's, you know, then you start to think, it's like, okay, the deck isn't completely game breaking, because if it was, and you had, you know, 60% of the meta share and 60% of the players playing it, then all the decks in top 16 should technically be that, right? Like if you're talking statistically, or maybe all but one, and it wasn't like that. And I'll bring up just a real quick like tangent to that is, we see it in Dragon Ball Fusion World now, right? Asian and I were just talking about that with Top Coup, right? Is that deck took what 15 out of the top 16 placements or whatever, one of the most recent events, something like that. That deck could be considered broken, right? Because of those things. So I think with kind of circling back, like with Digimon, it's like I don't see a deck that's so unbeatable, so above and beyond, where it's like, oh my gosh, if I sit down across this, I'm just gonna lose. Like you have your matchup spreads where it's like, this is a rough matchup for me, right? Like, you know, this versus that. But I think there's so many answers to certain quote unquote tier 1 decks that it doesn't put it in a category all its own.
Yeah, like not to touch it like all my points about a later topic, but like playing the simulator, I've seen so many interesting things that people are doing in this game that I thought was like mostly figured out. Someone the other day was like, you should put one searcher in every single one of your decks. It's a 1-cost draw one, and it's like running Upstart Goblin Yu-Gi-Oh, and you will have a 1 less card deck. You will draw into it quicker. You will get to your things. You should just run one. And it was so weird to like see something like that. Or I saw a Mother D Reaper that was using the Gamamon tech. So Hero was tucking Gamamons underneath it and making its stuff cheaper, like turns before, and gaining memory and drawing cards for doing so. So like, as much as I think like you can have your decks thought out, like I love that people are labbing to such a degree that you're like, you can still be surprised. And then even your point about making day 2, you know, at like different events, depending on the pilot, like we preached this, I think, in our last episode about tournament prep of like just learning your deck, that's step 1. Like I feel like I even saw results of that this week by like I played this deck for like 2 weeks straight, and then like take top 4 at a local thing, like whatever, like, but you know your deck, and because you know your deck, you're playing it well. So like I think like having the new shiny coolness is dope, but like there's also so much the testing not done with it that it'll improve later probably.
Yeah.
Unless it's like such an obvious game plan.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling my people at the Lorcana local that, like, you know, because some people were trying to figure out like what to play for like the big events, like in Seattle and the regionals. I can't remember. I think they're calling them like the Lorcana Challenge, I think is what the official name is. But that's neither here nor there. Of like, yo, play what you know best. Like, don't like, yes, if you want to build the meta best tier thing, you can try that. But if you do, you need to practice like crazy and understand everyone you play against is expecting you to play that. So just know that everybody thinks that that's what they're going to be sitting across from. So they're ready for whatever it is that is the top 3, top 4 decks. If you can find something that you're really good with and confident with outside of those top 4, you probably have a better chance of going further, because your opponent is trying to figure out what the hell are you doing the entire game, while you already know what you're doing, and you probably have a decent understanding of what they're doing, because it's probably one of the top 4 decks that everybody plays anyway. And that, like, and I think that's true of any card game, but especially when the metas are so much more like codified of like, this is like the best and you shouldn't play outside of that. But the moment I think you can step out of that and get a lot of reps in against those decks, I think you're in a really good place if you're a good pilot, period, right? If you're like a new person to a game, I don't know if I would do all that, but if you're like a really dedicated player and you kind of really understand like the interactions and everything, the more you can kind of go off the beaten path and like find that thing that's really good, I think the better you will do, personally. Anyway, guys, we're back after a little technical difficulty there. It's probably a short somewhere or some little snippet that y'all will see. You know, everybody's okay. So we're just going to jump straight back into it. And actually, let's talk about Digimon Liberator because I could finally freaking read it because I could scroll through and not wait for all the pages to load. I still think they should host it on Webtoon or like one of these other sites because that'd just be easier to digest. But so far, I love it and I want them to like animate it and like make it like its own thing because it gives me like this Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters vibe, the way that they've kind of written it out, which is sick.
I really am enjoying the design. I think the artwork on the thing is phenomenal. I like that it references game stuff. Chapter 0 just kind of has us getting into the simulator, which we talked about last time. And this chapter has us not only like playing our best friend in like a like starting fun round, haha. We also then like get into like kind of a more anime protagonist moment where we're fighting something we shouldn't be fighting. But they are explaining mechanics and stuff like as the Bukomon can hit on the first turn, he has rush, so like he swings, which is super cool. I like that they're incorporating it. I think my only problem I had with this chapter is sometimes it's so clear who's talking, and sometimes I feel like I don't know. But that might be the fact that I'm not reading as many comic books as I used to, or these web comics. Even talking to my roommate and a couple friends who are like way bigger into doing web comics, apparently this is the standard of how most comics are delivered this way, just like, you know, the long scroll. So I'm excited. We said, hey, by this time we'll read chapters 0 and 1, which I did. But by the time we've now done this, there's 2 more chapters. Like there's part 1 and part 2 of a chapter out, so you can go read chapter 2 and let us know if it's any good. And maybe we'll do next one. I don't want to give everyone reading homework all the time, but if people are interested. So far it's been short and sweet, which I really like, and it's got a lot of fun design space where you can kind of tell that they were just free. Like there was clear things we had to include, but they were also just like kind of go nutty with it. Like just include whatever you want. Like really interesting rookie choices for the pupils in design. So I'm excited to explore that space.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'll preface it by saying this: I'm not a huge just reader in general, but like even just going, I love comic books, but like going through like this, I kind of echo your guys' points that first and foremost, like the imagery on it was great, was fantastic. Like that was, you know, the way that the artistry was done, I really enjoyed that. I didn't have too much of a trouble like deciphering like dialogue between characters. I could see where I could see that point to where it is. My biggest thing with the dialogue was it wasn't, I hate to say it this way, but like it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't like I always have that issue when whether I watch or read something where I'm like, the thing that honestly like ropes me in is like the interactions between characters, regardless of what the dynamic is, whatever it is. I can't get past just forced. Age and I were talking about this about just a random topic a while ago, but like I can't get past like just forced dialogue or forced interactions where it's just like, that doesn't, it's just because it makes me like, and it doesn't make the especially when you're reading something. When you're watching something, you can like kind of whatever, but when you're reading something, for me anyways, it really breaks up my fluidity when I'm reading. So it's really hard for me to kind of like bring myself back into it, and I didn't feel like that with this. So yeah, I thought the story was great. I thought like all of that, but yeah, to your point, it's like I just got through those 2, and now it's like, yeah, we've already got these other ones out, so I gotta go read those 2. But but it was good. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. My thing just so far has been like, yeah, I just wish it was on like a different platform as well. And I mean, granted, they're like, oh, well, you'd have to pay for it over here. I'm like, that's fine. For me, because I'm so used to, I read like Tapas, Tappytoon, Webtoon, basically all the Korean like web comics. Like I have pretty much all the apps on my phone and just read them all day. Either it's a sickness. But yeah, no, the format's really good. I also see a lot of really cool potential for the future of the game. Just like story points, like cool, they can actually take story that's not just from the anime now and like have this whole original thing that they can build story and characters out of, which I think is going to be great. And also whenever they design their own client, which we can get to and we talk to, I feel like every freaking episode, but I feel like I can see the seedlings of like oh, okay, I can see how you'd build like your own client using this as like a basis visually to say, okay, cool, this is what our game would look like if you could play it. And I honestly would, again, I've said it before, I would not be surprised if their client is like the old style of Yu-Gi-Oh game where it's like a legit game that you go buy on your Switch or whatever, and it's like modeled after the card game, because that's what they did for Digital Card Battle back in 2000 and 1999, I think. Those two, like the two games that we use on Twitch, instead of the card game, they were like legit PlayStation games based on the card game from back then. I kind of would like them to do that, even though yes, you got to pay for it outright, but like do that and then just make DLC with new like cards and stuff in it. I just think that'd be fun because it would be so much more like story based and just kind of like and more engaging, I think, compared to like Master Duel, for example.
Yeah, and I think with that too is because you have the capabilities of doing, ideally you'd be able to do quality DLC and things like that now with all of the technology and like different gaming platforms, and even whether it's PC, PlayStation, whatever, like whatever, or if it's cross-platform, however they decide to do it. Yeah, whatever it is. I do think it would be a much more fleshed out game than just saying we're just going to give you an online client. Not that an online client would be bad. I mean, we'll take anything at this point. But, but I do think having a quote unquote a paid game to do that wouldn't, to me anyways, wouldn't come as much more of a turn as it would be like, okay, cool, at least we're getting something like solid quality and we know it's going to have longevity, right?
Yes.
For that. So yeah, I would definitely not be opposed to that being an option. But yeah, who knows what they're going to end up deciding to do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting you say that, because for a moment I didn't even consider that they have way more of a history of trying to do like a version of the game that's just all in box, a Forgotten Memories or whatever, like these versions of a card game that's just like, hey, there it is in a box that we can, you know, you have one and done. And it's, I guess it's from an older time of gaming too, where I was just like, I didn't even consider an option, but they've also proven that it probably worked a little bit. So I mean, I was obviously hoping for like an online client, because I feel like that's where we're leaning, because they talked about like the card game so much, but I guess the other one is just as likely that I just did not consider. Because when I look at Liberator, like especially Liberator coming up with the deck box, like I don't know if you guys saw it, but like the deck box, if it holds sleeve cards, I'm in. You've got me. I'm buying one for sure, 100%. So like, it does seem so geared at the TCG that I just don't know the way they're gonna go with it. They wanted to clearly like pitch up like the TCG, but I don't know if they know how they wanted to do that so far. So we're gauging interest through a webcomic, which I guess kind of works, but it's currently an enjoyable media, and I'm glad I get it for free, and I just get to immediately enjoy it. No waiting, no additional stuff. So overall, it's a net positive.
Yeah, and I think it's good finally, because I feel like Digimon has so much content that's like exclusive to Japan, right? In terms of just content in general. So it's cool that now Japan or Digimon seems to be getting like more international attention, as it has always deserved. I mean, we've all said that Digimon is like an underrated franchise outside of like the people who knew it growing up, but like in outside of Japan. So it's good to see like they're getting more content out there for people to just kind of dive into. That's different. I think that's the key thing. It's like new and different, and not like the same old sort of like stories being retold and repackaged in a different way.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's you've got a wide catalog of stuff to pull from, and you can just pull from anything and bring it in, and then tweak it or hype things up. I mean, we talked the last episode about how excited I am for the whole new Impmon line, which is all Liberator thing. We just got spoilers for the new like bug line where we're going Tiger Vespamon and like Queen Beemon, which is cool. Queen Beemon, like a brand new Digimon, I'm pretty sure. So, and the way they play, they like put cards into their security, and like it gives them bonuses for having face-up cards in their security. Oh, it's super interesting. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah. Cool. So, Frawley, do you want to move into our game that we've basically started as like a
Oh, is it my
thing.
bit time? My
Yeah.
1 bit time?
Not 1 bit. Well, you already had 1 bit, and you know.
We don't talk about the errata
Oh.
zone, okay? We haven't gone back. I haven't taken anything back. I've meant everything I've said ever.
I meant the
Oh, he
bit
meant
that's
this one.
exclusively for
I'm
today.
aware. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
We just want to speed past.
I'm gonna have to live with
My
it for the
bad.
rest of my life. I'm not acknowledging it right now. Anyways.
Okay. All right. You will.
So, okay.
You will.
You two, I have sent you an image of a brand new card that's going to be coming out in EX7. This brand new card is a Nature Spirits card. It's a level 7. It's 3 colors. That's kind of cool. So that's a little bit about the Digimon. Their name is Talokmon. TLALOC Mon. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. So your first hint. So this is 2 level 6s that are progressing together to make this Digimon. And this is brought to us by the brand new Digivices that are coming out. So I found out that the last one we did is just a brand new one that they've made specifically for this device. So not only is this a brand new device, but we also have it as a card. Your first clue is that the first Mega, it's a Digimon that's been around since the very first generation. It's the true line ending Digivolution of a Digimon that's appeared in almost every single media of Digimon. And in season, the Tamer season, its champion is also one of like the main people.
Fuck. Okay.
So level 6 Digimon, it's their true line. He's appeared in almost every single Digimon game or media that's existed in like one of his forms. So he's one of the older Digimons as well, from the very first gen.
Is it? What's Galgamon or shit, the rabbit? I'm trying to think his level 6.
Mega
Why-
Gargo?
Mega Gargo? Yeah.
No, right? Man, I don't know why. But I'm getting like, and I know it's not this because this is like later. But well, you said Tamers, so maybe is this maybe it's just because it's the imagery. Is this who's JP's
Oh, the bug?
ancient beetle? Yeah, the bug.
You are both incorrect. So I'll give you an easier one. It's the mega form of the Digimon who's best known for being murdered.
Oh, this is Leomon.
Oh,
100%.
Leomon. Okay.
But it's his mega.
Saber Leo.
It is
right?
Saber Leo. Yes, you are correct. Okay. So first hint you might not get it. Second hint you should get it. Okay, so this second one is gonna be way harder because I had to look up this Digimon and I forgot he existed. So it's part of the Nature Spirits, which are all Digimon that like have like a little bit of nature to them. Jagamon is on that list. Godsumon's on that list. Your hint for this one, and this is more for Dan because I know he's a big Pokemon guy. This is like a better Torterra evolution. Torterra is a big turtle.
Ibanumon.
Wait,
Hey.
yeah.
You said Torterra. That's Ibanumon, 100%. It's 100%. Yeah.
It's not a Bawamon.
No, it's not. Oh,
It's not. There's another one. It's a turtle. He has a castle on his back.
What?
What?
He has 2 cards in the TCG. Only one of them you might remember.
He has 2 cards. He's a turtle.
I
What-
do not
so
know those things.
What
Oh, go ahead.
series? Do you know what series he's from?
Absolutely not. I don't even know if he's in a series.
Okay.
He's in Cross Wars apparently. He's in Digimon Adventure.
Castle on his back.
Dude, the
And
only
he's a
one I
level
thought of
6.
immediately was Ibanumon.
Yeah,
Bawamon-
Bawamon is so close, Dan. Bawamon
Yeah,
is so
he's
close.
got the trees on his back though. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not.
So
Oh
this
my God, who am I thinking?
this is El Doradimon.
Oh, I don't even know what he looks
yeah,
like.
yeah, nope,
Yes.
wouldn't have guessed that.
He has 2 cards. He has a giant castle on his back. He's a huge turtle. Yes,
Google
this one was a
El
little hard to
Dorado.
guess, but yes, this is our newest one. Thank you for the girl who looks like Midna from Twilight Princess as a Digimon. I'm glad we got it.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I see him. Yeah. Yeah, he's from
So
Double
what's-
Diamond. Yeah.
What's crazy to me is I'm because I think just very like very practically about the size of this thing, because like looking at like its like proportions, it looks like it'd be a very small Digimon,
Mm.
but then I'm like thinking of like knowing how big I can't say the name how'd you say it?
It's
Eldoradimon.
Eldorado.
Yeah, Eldoradimon, and who do we say the first? Oh, Saber Leomon. This thing should be pretty big, right? But I feel like it's gonna be like Celebi size for
Yeah.
Pokemon people out there. Like it's gonna be like little, like a big headdress.
Yeah,
Holy
no,
moly.
100%. It's
Yeah, I
gonna be
would've never
barely
guessed
bigger
that.
than Agumon, 100%, and only because of the headpiece.
Wow.
Yeah, this one was a really hard one to do because nature spirits are like only kind of in like one season, but they kind of do a 4 sovereignty thing too. Like there's like 4 nature spirits.
Well, shit.
Yeah. Well, look, we're gonna have to wait for like a new dim card to come out or a new Digivice to come out before we can do this bit again. So you are safe from this bit for now.
For now. Yeah. All right.
That was a good
Well,
one.
yeah, that was a good one. Stumped us compared to last time. Last time, I feel like we got that pretty damn fast.
Okay.
This one, no.
You couldn't pay
No.
me to know. You couldn't pay me to know Eldoradimon.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
Ibanamon, like I knew that one, but yeah, when you're like, no, I'm like, that's the only turtle in this game. I didn't even completely forgot.
Yeah. I thought of the freaking champion level shellfish thing that Greymon fights in and I'm like, that's not right. I was like, that's not even remotely correct.
It is blue. I mean, technically it has blue in it, I guess.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, holy moly.
Speaking of Digimon,
Another 3-color Digimon though. That's kind of cool to come out in the card game. Another true 3 colors. Sorry, but I interrupted.
No, you're good. I was gonna say to kind of like round out our Digimon discussion for today. The greatest thing to ever happen to this game, and of course it's fan led, is the DCGO launch. Like I guess probably a month or a month and a half ago, maybe even 2 months by the time y'all see this. And oh my god, it has been so addicting and just a fun way to really just test stuff that like I don't have the time to put together physically because I don't know where all my cards are. Y'all know I have just that is all cards from different games. So we got too much shit to kind of sift through. So that has been really cool. What are you guys' first like thoughts and impressions? Which I kind of already know the answer, but
can we just start off with like a very big thank you? Like,
yes,
I've never just wanted to say thank you to a community. Like I've thanked the guy from DigimonCard.dev. I've thanked the guys at Digimon Meta. Like, please allow me to extend another like big thank you to helping this community like do its thing. Like this game is the easiest thing I've been able to recommend people for like the last 2 weeks, and I even got friends who have like stopped playing to play me in a couple rounds in a room because like they can see how all cards go off and like do some stuff. It's so accessible. It's very well playable. I've learned moves and options I have by playing this card game by realizing I can choose Digivolution costs if I meet the requirements to do so. Like War Groundmon, I've been playing this whole time. I didn't realize this thing said from hand or trash. I've only been doing it from trash. That deck's way better. Like this has taught me so much and like really like reignited my passion to play. Cause like I played in 2 Evo Cups or 2 like Evo Cups online, 2 Evo Cups in person. Like just because I've been doing all my testing on this thing, and I built 2 decks that I felt like very good about.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna start off because I gotta, you know me, I gotta play there's the only slight negative I'll say about it is that it's not the easiest thing to set up for somebody who's not super tech literate, right? Because it's not as simple as just like go to their website, download it, right? Like there's a few steps that you have to follow, whatever. However, I will say once you have a download, to Frawley's point, it is super user friendly. It like building decks is fantastic. The deck builder, like the way that they have it configured in terms of viewing and like searching for cards, it's fantastic. So I do agree that like it is of course the best thing that we've gotten as Digimon players to be able to do that. But yeah, to Frawley's point, I want to play Shine. I don't have it put together anymore. I've taken it apart a while ago. I'm like, hey, I can put Shine together and like, and I didn't realize that when you Evo your Agumon into your Koromon in your breeding area, that you can actually choose if you want it to be 0 or 1. Because the specified cost of like can digivolve from Koromon for 0 is a you may effect basically. So it's cool that it's like if I have nothing else going on in my hand, and it's like I only want to give my opponent one memory to start off the game with, or like you can manipulate those kind of things. So it does, from a competitive standpoint, it really does. It allows you to like get to know more of the interactions, and then you obviously sequencing is a huge thing in this game, right? Because it you know, effect triggers and timing and all this other stuff. And I do feel like the game is like really, really fleshed out. I think the only quote unquote bug I've had, this is something that other people have shared with me, is that like when you're trying to queue up for like a public game, not a bot game, or obviously like if you're in a room match, but a public match, sometimes it won't pair you up. And I don't know if that's like server overload or if it's like connection, but you just close out of the app, you open it back up, and you're right back in. Like it takes nothing but like 3 seconds. So so that's nothing to really complain about. So like I think with this app, it's like we were just saying this a minute ago, but it's like this is what we should have and what our expectations should be as players, right? And the fact that it was fan made speaks even more to that point, that it's like somebody can do this. That's not even like quote unquote paid by the company, or like, you know what, like they're like, the community needs this, we're going to provide it. And man, they knocked it out of the park, I'll tell you.
A true definition of a passion project.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, especially with how complicated some of those interactions, I'm sure, are, just getting everything together. And it's crazy to me how like it works seamlessly. And to y'all's points about the choosing evolution costs, I'm so glad that to me is like, yeah, duh. Because like when I first started playing Examon, y'all remember when, well, maybe you do, I was in an event and somebody was like, nah, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure you can choose it. And I was like, okay. And I never thought about it again. But for it to come back up like, yeah, duh, like we tried to do this before, and people were like confused and like, no, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. Da da da. And I think some people just like let it go and just kind of said whatever. But yeah, no, from a competitive perspective, like that's really important to be able to say, I'm just gonna give you one memory and pass, instead of giving you 3.
It's so important. And like my favorite part about it was like the example I saw was like a Guillaumon I use all the time, who can digivolve onto purple but cannot digivolve onto red, or can go into a Digimon for free. And that is one that I've been playing with red decks a lot. So I don't have that option. I've never seen that option. But then I've been switching out the babies for purple babies. And then you see, and you're like, well, of course, I meet both requirements at the same time. I could choose which one I want. These little levels are what give you a better opportunity of learning a game, or like really getting under the hood. Because when you get stuck into that mentality of like, well, they have something and I'm going to set them to 3 or blah, blah, blah. Like, you have options. Digivolving and setting someone to 1 is a green thing to do. Like, you know, it's a very green thing to be like, no, you at 1. And you can start off games like much slower if you have a hand that needs to develop, but you have cheap development, and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna play a training. So like, if he sets me back to 1, he's back to 1. Like, you want to play the choke game? Let's play the choke game. Let's play setup. And like, you might be a deck that doesn't want to do that, and you're like, nah, I'm slamming a tamer as hard as I can to get out of that situation. So like, I think it's something like this, a tool that allows you to sequence, to figure out your plays, to do what I think I do best, which is I can't learn a deck by playing against it. I have to play the deck. I recently picked up Leviamon. I learned how to play Leviamon, and I learned how to play Apocalypse. Apocalypse I'm still bad at, but like, I figured it out to a point where I'm like, oh, that's what they're trying to do. Or you're like, oh, okay, so like, now that I'm looking at like he wants odd numbers, like let's avoid odd numbers. Like you find yourself playing against these things.
Well, in to that point, it's like this is one of the earliest things that we talked about. Like in one of our very first podcasts about the game, is one of the biggest, I wouldn't say gimmick, but like one of the biggest things about this game is memory manipulation between you and your opponent. It's the biggest interaction that you have with your opponent, is how much memory are they going to give me? How much do I have to work with to then give them back? So now knowing that there's essentially, it's always been there, but we as players never really think about it, because like you said, we kind of get roped into this like pre-programmed way of thinking of this is just how it has to be. It's like, no. I can actually use this now to my advantage and kind of manipulate the board how I want. To your point, Frawley, like I've tried playing Fenrir Lugumon in like IRL with cards, because I have the deck put together. It's one of, it's a deck I really enjoy, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't get it to work in cards. The moment I started playing it online, and I'm like, okay, now those interactions are walking me through it, and like the sequencing and all that, boom, that makes sense. I've got it. So yeah, I think this is something we've echoed episode after episode about online clients is like it's just the best supplement for a TCG player in general for the game that they play IRL, right? Whether it's paid, whether it's subscription based, whether it's free, whatever, doesn't matter. It's only going to allow you to like want to play the card game more because you're going to be like, okay, well, I know how to do this online now. Now I want to take that to an event and do it in an event, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the biggest fears, again, projecting, is that that these big TCG companies have is like, well, if we have an online client, they're never going to play card games. And I'm like, no, I think it's quite the opposite. I feel like if you don't have the client, they're going to be discouraged from playing the game because of instances like that, and they're just like, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with it anymore. But if you can empower the players and be like, hey, we're gonna try to support you by giving you this as a tool, right? Regardless of how you have to come about it, you're gonna want to go to more events. You're gonna want to go to and buy more product and try these things out. Especially when you, like, to Asia's point, you have all these cards that, let's say for the sake of argument, you don't have access to. You can try them out, and it's like, oh my gosh, I actually love this. Now you're gonna go buy them, right? Or so things like that. So I think overall, it's just a complete, like, it's a benefit for players to have. And having this as a tool, it's dangerous, but it's cool at the same time because it's very easy to get sucked into if you really start enjoying something and you're just like, oh, game over and over and over again. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I mean, to quickly tack on just the end of that too, like I think there is always going to be a group of people who are never going to purchase your TCG. They're just not. They're interested in playing it. They don't want to purchase it. They don't want to spend money on it. It is what it is. Those are the people who you will still at least get into the game because of the client. Whether or not they play on, like, anything else ever, like, you're not alienating a market. You're giving the people who are never going to do it the chance to never do it, and the people who are on the fence of leaning onto it, like, maybe the push they need.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and when we get to Pixelborn, we can pour one out for them. I think with Digimon, with this and the way that they're doing this client, that makes it smart of not immediately releasing everything on release, because I think a company's fear is if someone else makes this, you're not going to buy sealed, you're going to buy singles. We don't get no money from singles. We only get money when you buy the sealed product, right? Which I think is their fear when other folks make stuff. But I think with the way that this is going, it's actually really interesting because it doesn't interfere with the release currently of anything new, right? It's like, if you want to buy the singles new stuff, I mean, you can, but you still can't even test it on DCGO for who knows how long. So it kind of, it answers that question of like, well, once everybody's had time to kind of get the product themselves and play around, then they can come to the client and really lab and workshop other stuff. And by then, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you would probably be buying singles as a regular player anyway after that certain time period, because you don't need to buy any more boxes. You've already got your 4. And after those 4, most people are done buying stuff. Because you don't need to at that point. You should just, unless you're trying to make a master set, even then you just gonna go and just buy singles, presumably.
I'm a $2 guy, and then and I choose the stuff I'm not gonna play, and I trade it for the stuff I am gonna play.
Smart man.
On the day of release.
Anywhere from 4 boxes to a case plus. So that's me. So I can't.
You know what? Goblins will see you teleport and say he doesn't have a chariot.
So it is what it is. But speaking of clients, unless anybody had any thoughts other than, obviously, thank you to Huang Zero and team for putting together DCGO. It's an amazing feat. And I do think, I guess for me, the biggest thing I've noticed, because you guys were talking about like when you're testing stuff, I've noticed that my love of high rolly decks is weird when it comes to the client, and I think that the heart of the cards must be real, because the hands that I get when I'm actually, even at like actual real events, playing Omnimon and all that, like, just don't happen on the client. Like they just don't happen. Like I just find that I dig forever to find those pieces, same, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing with Examon on there. But when I play them in real life, my luck is clearly better. So that's been interesting to kind of see, like, well, statistically, it is obviously possible that this scenario is going to happen. It's just crazy how often it seems to happen to me in a virtual setting than in person.
I guess I don't want to kill our mood, because we're so hyped about this, and like we're enjoying it. We're in the throes of it right now. But I want to tell everyone to, like, please enjoy this while you can, because this is most likely a limited time thing, and they have every right to shut them down at any point. So please follow their rules. They've asked people not to run tournaments for money on the clients. This is strictly for like testing and learning and like basically like getting people into it. So like the more we can abide, we're over the line of the law. If we're real cool about it though, they might be real cool about it for a bit. So maybe we just all try to be real cool. But
No, 100%.
no, but besides, thank you immensely. Like I've got nothing else for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it goes down as a, regardless of the outcome, right? Regardless of what happens with the client, what Bandai decides to do or not do or whatever. This I feel like is your quote unquote like turning point moment in the TCG, in terms of where it moves forward. Granted, yes, we've talked about synced up releases and all that, and that'll happen. Like that'll be another kind of monumental moment too. But that's more of a global. But I'm talking in terms of like player base specifically. This is that moment that we're like, okay, something's going to come out of this. I don't know what it's going to be, but like to Frawley's point, enjoy it while it lasts, and then we'll see what happens moving forward. But I think that it's going to be, not like I said, something's going to come out of this, and hopefully for the better. But it's one of those like, to incite change, you have to do something big to do that, and this is that. This is our big that's happening. So yeah, so I'll just I'll repeat what you guys say. Just a big thank you to Huang Zero for being that like change of like, hey, we really needed this, and they finally just said, hey, we're going to go ahead and give the community what they need, and then let the dominoes fall, right, and see what happens. So
he's been doing stuff since day one too, straight up for this game. Like he's been here since the get-go.
Yeah. And kind of moving into the horror story, the reverse. I don't know. Pixelborn, it's gone, or rather, it will be. I think June, sometime this month. So Pavel, I think that's the name of the dude who put it all together, got a cease and desist from Ravensburger / Disney. And this is one of those things where, like, I've said it before. I know we've probably all said it either on or offline, of like, I'm surprised that it lasted as long as it did, because we're talking about Disney and we're talking about their IP. I feel bad for dude because he put so much time and effort into it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, now I guess people got to play the game with webcam, right? Like, and I know, like, I've seen people, being like, oh, how will I ever play? And like people sarcastically showing them like, this is what all the other TCGs do. They just use a webcam and play the game. I think Pixelborn had a really good position when you couldn't find product, but now that you can find product, it's kind of like, well, I can see why they'd be like, hey, like, this isn't an issue anymore. People can play the game, so like we don't really need this to be here, which is unfortunate and like sad. But I will say, from at least the folks that I play with at my local, the I don't know what the cool thing is, but like the thing that I hope happens for the community is the meta opens up more. People stop playing the same goddamn decks, because Pixelborn, it's like the same freaking decks that you would play over and over and over again. And now the meta will be more defined by like official events, and not like, or even just not even just official events, but like physical card events that people are playing in either locals for fun, in webcams, in like events where they run things in Discords. Like, you will probably see more of that defining how people play, which I think is probably better in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to like the biggest point about it is, in my opinion, is coming from a big like company like that. I know it's Ravensburger in collaboration with Disney, but it's like there's one of two things that they want out of this, right? It's either they just flat out don't want a client for their card game, which is valid. Like, you could think that's okay, or they want control of their client, right? Because it's their IP. So I think like you said, I think they kind of just let it slide for a while. I don't know if there was any real like turning point for them to be like, hey, oh wow, now okay, you guys are already on our radar, but this happened and we just can't, whatever. Or if it was something as simple as like, hey, look, we let this go because we knew that there was a product obtainability issue, but now that there's not, you guys don't need this, right? It could also be something that maybe they have something in their pipeline and they're like, hey, in order for us to like have a proper rollout, we can't have this on the market too, because you got so much of an established player base on this, who's going to come to our game? So there's a lot of different reasons of what cannot be, whatever. But I think ultimately it's like, I always go back to looking at not quality of app, that's a whole other thing, but just how they've managed it for the longest time is Pokemon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is how they've been able to pair their cardboard game and their online app, and being able to use them symbiotically for events and for all of this other stuff. And it's like, I don't ever see, granted they have a different structure, and like I said, that's a whole nother thing, but it obviously can be done. So I'm having a hard time thinking that like Disney's reason is we just don't want a client. I really do think that card games will eventually, like we see it with Fusion World with Dragon Ball. They're having one, and we don't know what the situation is with the whole Dragon Ball world, but like I think with Lorcana, it's like, yeah, I can understand why players would be upset. You take away your convenience, they take away, whatever. But it's like, looking at it from a business standpoint, it's like Disney wasn't making no money off of that, and we all know like that's not going to be like that. I'm like, to Age's point, I'm surprised it did last this long. But I think ultimately it's like I wouldn't count it out as a in the realm of possibility of having a client for this game eventually. It just may not come as soon as people would hope, right? I do think there's going to be a lull, and there's going to be, try to bring people in, but yeah, I think ultimately just got to the point where it's just like, yeah, we can't. People are going too far into this, and yeah, now we have official events for Lorcana, so they have to kind of push it that way, and and again, I don't know if there was anything. Maybe Ada, you might have, because I know you play it more than we do, but if there was any actual, like, not, there would be unofficial, but like events run through Pixelborn, like with that, right?
Yeah.
That's not something Disney's
I don't
gonna
know,
want.
honestly. You're 100% right. That's not something they'd want to support. Reminds me of when Nintendo got mad at the Smash community because they wanted to do a tournament for the older Smash games through like an emulator, and it was like widely advertised and stuff like that, and Nintendo sent them a cease and desist, and people were like, what the hell, like, we're trying to support your community. I mean, that's different, right? That's a different, similar but different. But they were upset that they were trying to do it through an emulator, and they shut it down. That was a big thing for the Smash community, unfortunately. But it is what it is.
But like to like Frawley's point about the DCGO, and like going back to like what like Huang and them and said, is like the issue is like when you run like tournaments, even if it's online locals, it's nothing majors, it's nothing official, whatever. If you're profiting off of somebody else's IP, that's a problem, right? Coming from a business perspective, like, I mean, that's a big problem. So it's like, maybe they didn't, maybe there was never any Pixelborn thing, there's no profiting off it, whatever. But point being is that if Disney and Ravensburger wants to run their own official events and collaborate with locals and all this other stuff, they can't do that while Pixelborn still exists. It's just it's hard to do that. If a lot of the players are kind of gravitating still towards that. So
I guess my hope for DCGO is much like Pixelborn, where, like what you're saying is, if they're truly shutting it down because they have something that's coming out to replace it, I guess that's the best way to get shut down. I don't know how much work the creator of this did, but like, there's also been stories of people who have like programmed things, got cease and desisted, but then like later was offered like potential, like even like partnership at a company.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, you do good work, and we've seen you do good work, but like you just didn't have the legal rights to do so. So there are good times where this can like work out like that. The mouse is real litigious about all of its properties, so I'm not surprised that this happened. And we were talking about this earlier. Like Disney knew this was something the whole time. Like there's no way someone didn't know that this was happening. So I think they just took it as free advertising, right? We can have free advertising for the first little bit while we get set up and figure out our tournaments, and then we can just take it down later because we have every recourse to do so we can do it at any point. They basically were just like handed a pin to pop a balloon, and we're like, whenever you want.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because like I feel for the guy as well, because like I feel like fan projects have so much time and energy that you don't see, and fans of products and products do not always get along, whether it's modding or like multiple things, that people just want to improve on things. I think that one of our problems is we always want to make things better, and a lot of times companies are like, that don't make us money, like it's not where we're going, and it's our thing to start off with, so they kind of have the right to do what they will. Yeah. What is a castle made of sand or whatever? Like you've only got so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just looked it up, Dan. Yeah, I just found one random tournament that was ran back in December, but it was like a cash tournament, $500 prize, but cash nonetheless. And then they had other prizes in the top, like up to top 16, top 32. So like, yeah, it looks like people were using Pixelborn as a tournament platform to run events.
there you go.
So yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things where it's unsurprising. It's unfortunate again, and it kind of is one of those it is what it is situations. Like there isn't really much you can do about it. And I think to your point, Frawley, like Disney is very litigious. I mean, as they kind of have to be eye roll, but kind of have to be being the mega corporation that they are. It's just unfortunate that somebody spent all that time and effort and all that into this thing, and it's now gone. But at the same time, it's like you had to know at some point this thing was gonna disappear. But
it's like owning a pet.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I just think that going forward for the Lorcana community, I think it will be ultimately better. I have seen people. I mean, the Lorcana Facebook is toxic as hell, but I have seen a lot of people talking about like they're never gonna play the game again. I'm like, but you're already buying the product. So you were playing Pixelborn and buying the product, but not playing the game in person. Like I'm a little confused about how that makes sense, but that's fine. I don't really think it's going to be like one of those things of, oh, nobody's going to play the game anymore. And I don't think it's going to be an issue either of like, nobody's going to, they're not going to be growing as quickly either. Cause I think their regional events prove that's completely false, but also you can't go anywhere now, at least over here where I'm at in LA. Every store I've gone into has got Lorcana shit, like Best Buy even, and like it's everywhere. I can't escape it. They printed it into the ground. So availability just isn't even a discussion, I think, anymore.
Yeah, my locals, I went in there like a weekend or so ago. It was for the Digimon set, but went in there and sure enough, like he has this whole display of the set 2, because set 3 hasn't come out yet, right? Or is it?
They're on set 4. They're on set 4.
Okay, so it was set 3. It was the most recent set that's out. He's got that. And then right around the corner is a Target from me. We stopped in there to grab something. They had starter decks all over the walls. Like and that's the thing, right? Before we all went through these troubles of release of Lorcana, where it's like starter deck $60. Go ahead and sorry. Now I can go to Target. And I think the starter deck was like $12. I can pull it off the shelf, right? And like no big deal, which is what they should be. And we knew that was going to happen. We knew that it was going to come down. It was just, again, it's like it gets released, the availability and the like for all these term, the new shiny thing, like everybody wants to get it, and it brings and I do think that Ravensburger and Disney probably didn't they didn't really anticipate the type of response, which I don't understand why they wouldn't have, but anyways, of people buying their product and the supply being completely depleted.
Yeah.
But then they very quickly realized that they rolled out a second wave of set 1, and then they cleaned it up with set 2 and onward.
Yep.
And then now product isn't an issue. So to your point, I'm not in the Lorcana Facebook group, so I don't quite know.
Yeah.
But like to your point, I'm like, that would be kind of odd to be like, you're buying product. I get that, like you're upset that the game, like I get that, but they're two separate issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not linked together, even though it's the same game. It's not the same thing. You're complaining about one thing, but you're going to give up something else. Like doesn't make sense. So I think it's one of those things, going back to it, and this is me just generalizing, is that we know, and we can say this as longtime TCG players, that TCG players in general, sometimes you have your few, I would say, that just complain to complain, because it's like, we got nothing, and I get it. I do. Like, in some places we don't have a locals. I hear that all the time. We don't have we don't have, I get it. I do. But like you said, webcam, like, it's not like that's how a lot of TCGs have had to go to, because of obviously over the last few years we've had to kind of go electronic and all that. So there are avenues, right? And then to your point, Disney, their Lorcana's regional numbers are speaking otherwise towards like the turnouts. So there's no, I think I can't imagine that the guy who created Pixelborn, I don't know him from nothing, but it's like, I can't imagine that he didn't know when he created this that there was a clock on it. That's like, I'm gonna create this thing, and then it's gonna be. You can aspire to that. You can hope like, hey, maybe Disney will take notice and like whatever. But you can't think like, oh yeah, they're just gonna let me run rampant with this. No big deal. Especially when it's like, yeah, you may not have control over those Pixelborn paid tournaments, but you were the one who enabled them. So it ultimately comes down to you. So yeah, I can't imagine that it's like, and I do think, again, going back to DCGO, I think that's why Huang Zero and all them are so adamant on, please just stay within these confines, because we don't want the same thing happening, because they're smart enough to know this could end at any moment.
Yeah.
And they said it before we even knew about the Pixelborn shutdown. they knew that the sword of Damocles is just like hanging there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I get it. Like, as a fan, like, it's hard sometimes. You want to do all these great things, and it's just like, you just got to really, really, really think through like what you're doing. And I've seen a lot of content creators or really filmmakers that I know who want to do fan projects, and they feel like, which is valid, everybody gets a different set of rules depending on who you ask. Because like for fan projects, y'all, you're not supposed to go do crowdfunding. That's like a thing, generally speaking, you're not supposed to do. But some companies don't give a shit, or they're just like, fine, whatever, let you get away with it. But sometimes for some creators, like I've seen people say, yeah, well, I was told I couldn't do that, so I had to pay out of pocket for this fan film, right? And like, which is wild to me. But like, yeah, it's difficult when you're working in the confines of somebody else's like IP. It's not as cut and dry, especially when you're not talking about video games. I think video games, there's the water there is super murky because of mods and like other things, and there's a lot of give and take there. While legally you can or can't do things, but there's a lot of like, it's fine because there's an understanding of like, this is really helping me boost sales and all those sorts of things, and conversation around your game. And ideally, like, a client will do that. But sometimes, again, you have bad actors who are taking advantage of that, and it's just kind of, it is what it is. But I'm hoping that ultimately for Lorcana, like, I think it will be fine. I think you never know. Like, they really could build their own digital thing. I would not put it past them at all, just given what they're probably getting inundated with right now. I'm sure they're getting inundated with people complaining or sending like, hey, why'd you guys do this? Hey, can you just make an official one? Blase, blase. I'm sure they're getting their inboxes flooded with requests from people who are upset. I'm sure that's a thing.
I mean, to tie it back to DCGO, like, not that I want them to take notice of us, but I do hope that if they do shut it down, they do take a look at the numbers, because I hope they can see the traffic of, like, how many people want to be playing this in a digital space. Like, numbers don't lie. I just hope that they look at metrics in a way that they're like, oh, there is a lot of people saying that they want this.
Well, we've said it before too. I really think Fusion World is their way of testing that for all their games, right? I really think that Fusion World is their way of saying, okay, what's broken, what isn't, how do we do this, how do we do that? I think the next games that are in line, in my opinion, to get some kind of like digital buff would be One Piece, because it's fucking One Piece, or Digimon. Because it just makes sense. If you're gonna bet on those IP, those are the three you'd kind of bet on. But specifically One Piece and Dragon Ball. Sorry, y'all who don't believe that, but specifically One Piece and Dragon Ball are the two you're gonna bet the most on, because they're cash. They print money, just globally. So yeah, I don't know. I think Bandai. We talk a lot of stuff about Bandai, but I think Bandai is better positioned to really do that, because I feel like they've been considering it. I mean, look at all their tutorial apps. Like, every game has a tutorial app, which tells me you got the code somewhere and you started working on something somewhere. So who knows?
Yeah, the like Frolly said, the data's there. They have the tools and resources. They have the player based response. The game has been out for well long enough to like to make that determination. It's up to them on what they're gonna do with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I would have a hard time thinking if they completely just like neglect it. They shut down. Let's say hypothetically they shut down this and they neglect it and just don't do anything. Then it's like, okay, what else are we as a player base supposed to think other than you just don't care about us and you're just gonna like forget you guys or whatever. I can't think that they'd want to do that if their true intention is we just want to continue to perpetuate the game into the future, right? The best way to do that is look at the numbers, see what we've got, and build out things that will help support that. But at the same time, they've got their own ideas. I mean, who knows? You know,
Yep.
they've got so many things that nobody will know about, that it's like they release this, and it's like we all sit there back and like, why would they do this? You know, so there's a lot of possibility there.
To do like a very big callback to like the start of the episode when we talked about like Bandai and singles and like what they think about like people buying singles. I forgot to share this with you boys. This is a deck tech that they posted on. Actually, hold on. Why aren't you sending? There we go. This is a deck tech that they posted on their Twitter about like a fun haha Myotismon deck that you can run from like them bringing it up. There's 4 rare mons in this list.
Bruh.
They want you to run 4 rare mons.
They say go find 4 rare mons.
So just to like tie it on back to the what Bandai thinks, like sometimes they don't fully think out things before they say them out loud.
But could we say that? I mean, again, I'd have to think that they do, but like, do they just not pay attention to the singles market? Because we know that as players, we know what those cards are going for. But for them, they're just looking at it as like, yeah, we know this card is good because we printed it, and it should go in this deck. They're not looking at a singles market or a secondhand market of like, yeah, this card's going for X amount, and we can't expect players to go out there and buy 4 of them, right? Who knows, but yeah, it's like I try to look at the positive in this and think like, okay, maybe it's just sheer like obliviousness, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like we don't care, and just you guys,
everything else in this deck is so cheap. Like honestly, like this looks like something that people were trying to do, that where you like build a deck under $10 or whatever until you hit the rare.
Yeah, I bet you they didn't know. I bet you they probably pay attention to the secondary market, but not nearly as much as they probably should for Digimon. Because I mean, when you just look at like the lottery cards, their secondary market value tends to be shit after a few months. If we're being completely honest, they tend to plummet really bad. And I honestly feel like they don't design things for the secondary market for Digimon, right? And what I mean by that is like, I feel like only recently have we been getting this artwork where you're like, oh my god, I want to get that graded. That's beautiful. And that's maybe the past 2 or 3 sets. Unlike Dragon Ball and One Piece, where I feel like they make cards with the intention of, this is a secondary market card where you want this to be pristine and beautiful for your collection or for you to sell it. And then they go and make 20 different versions of the same card where you have the mad $2,000 version and the $2 version, right? And I feel like Digimon doesn't get that treatment in the same, not yet anyway, like maybe recently in the past couple sets where they have like the 3-star versions of a rarity. So I don't know. I honestly wonder if maybe they're not paying that much attention to promos, at least, and their value. Because I feel like up until now, promos haven't been Raremon level expensive.
The other thing though is that they tend to reprint the promos for other things, like tournament packs for entries for locals. Like these, currently one of the things that annoys me is the Digimon Liberator promos are winner pack promos for winning your locals. Like you can get them for winning. So like they're just going to be more money. Like if it's like me where it's a Gamamon, you're going to pay out the ass to get all the Gamamon promos you need to run the deck, and then they're going to do a set where they reprint them. Like this just seems like something they're gonna make a winner of later.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
I mean, they do the same thing in Dragon Ball.
The Zupamon.
Yeah, that's what they do in Dragon Ball, for better or for worse. Like we've noticed that like they'll do this whole set of dope ass promos, and then like a few promo cycles later, there's like cheap versions of them, which I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's just sometimes it's like it feels random as hell. Like they have versions of a Bardock from like set 3 or some shit as like a promo. I'm like, why? Because if you check TCG Player, he's pennies still. It's the SS2 Bardock. I'm like, it looks cool, but I don't understand why this got picked over something that's like actually difficult to find. Like, I don't know, Divine Restraint Vegeta, which I need for my deck. That's neither here nor there. But they'll pick stuff where you're like, I mean, I guess. I don't understand why. Or yeah, it's like they half-assedly pay attention. I don't know who is making those decisions and who's looking at what markets. Maybe it's because they're looking at so many different markets that they're trying to figure it out. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird.
I remember like the jamming V1 for tournament packs was really big for a minute because like didn't have a reprint before that. And then they did like the Akuamon X, and like that was the very first Akuamon X I had because they were just so much money and I wasn't getting my hands on them. Yeah. But you're right, like there's ones that like you haven't seen probably since the first printing.
Yeah, you're like,
what you guys are talking about, I'm thinking of one perfectly. Is it's I think there's been a reprint now. Is when I got into the game, I was playing Yellow War Greymon in set 4 was the promo Pulsemon. Right?
Yes.
That card was $35 each. I remember that so clear as day, because I'm like, I didn't have a problem spending $8-10 on an SR with the War Greymons. I'm like, why do I have to buy freaking 4 of these $40 almost promos?
Right?
Right?
And they were more money when Lord Knight was out too, because then Lord Knight came out and then it became like the engine for it.
Well, that's why I got lucky, because I bought them with War Greymon. I was like, I'm just gonna whatever, and then I was still so new to the game. I didn't know nothing about Lord Nightmon. People were talking about whatever, and then Lord Nightmon hit, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you have to run these because you all this." And I'm like, "Well, I already got 4 of them." They're like, "Bro, these things are like $50-$60 each." And I'm like, "Well, then now I don't feel so bad." Now look at them though. So it's like
19 cents.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say they're 19 cents. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, granted, I've got my value out of them. I've had them for almost 3 years, so like I don't feel as bad. But yeah, to that point, it's like there can't be, and I'm not saying that Raremon's going to go through that same thing, because cards, and this is the point that I was going to make. Cards are objectively good depending on the meta that they're in, right? Unless a card is just like, subjectively good depending on the meta that they're in. Cards are objectively good if it's just a good card, right? Where Raremon is just a good card in its colors, right? Like, because obviously you're talking color specific, whatever. But the fact that like what it does and the traits it has and its effects and everything is just an objectively good card. Whereas Pulsemon, it's like, there's plenty of other good yellow rookies out there now, like who whatever. But like, this is a good black purple level 4. You could probably play that in just about anything. So
I mean, I don't want to rag on it, because like what annoyed me the most about the reprint of Pulsemon is in the reprint set they gave him his winner specific art. So I have the winners from Battle of Omni, but that's the only one that got reprinted. They didn't reprint the regular art, because he looked too much like Sonic. You said that, and I was like, oh man, he's so right. I'm so annoyed by it. And the thing with Raremon, I think the scary thing is, they talk about it in the Yu-Gi-Oh community all the time, or like Magic too, is like too generic. It's so generic, it's so easy. You don't have to meet any special requirements for Raremon, right? Trash a card in hand. Doesn't say color, doesn't say anything. You could put this in a deck that doesn't even run black purple, potentially. Like,
you could, yes, yeah.
It's so generic. Yeah, like you're right. We were talking about Ukomon earlier. That is a situation of like, there are good cards that are good in good situations, and then there is a card that overall is pretty just good.
Well, and I think you do see that somewhat. I mean, with the Dragon Ball knowledge that I do have, and looking at cards now for the past 2 years, Dragon Ball still does have some of that, where it's like you have objectively good promos, that they might still get down to, between that $5-10 mark, but they'll never get below that, because they're just objectively good, either in the color that they're in, or because Dragon Ball does have the very, like, you're typically color specific, so or leader specific, or kind of like that. So you still have those type of stipulations, but regardless, it's like if you run a red deck, you're running this card, because it's like, so it's those kind of things. So it's like, I'm okay with that. It's just, I think the issue with it is like when we're talking about like all of the reprints, it's just kind of like, if I don't know, I think if you're gonna do that, it's one of those things where it's like, it makes it tough for those original versions, right? Which, again, we're talking future of the game. I mean, I got the Pulsemons back, like I said, 3.5 years ago, whatever it was, when I first got into the game. Reprints didn't happen until way later. Who's gonna know that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not me complaining about it, it's just making a point. But it's like, I think it to the original point of like Bandai paying attention to the secondary market with the promos that they release, it's hard to justify that they do. Yeah. Because I feel like they're just kind of like, we're gonna pick up this one and we're gonna pick up that one, and that's gonna go in the TPs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, Yeah. I think honestly what they could benefit from, and maybe I could be wrong, I don't know, is doing something like the spell back, and I still love this set, but the special illustration rares that they did, and I'll show you guys on camera really quick, the Serafi, right? This, one of my favorite cards. When they did those the community votes, right? If you had something more like that, it involves the community more, so they feel like they have more of a say over that. But then also it's kind of like it kind of helps control the secondary market a little bit on their end, right? Because if they're putting out cards that the community is saying we want put out, they can kind of, work it that way. I don't know if that's a smart business strategy or not, but I do think ultimately it might help quell that issue maybe slightly. I don't know.
I always wish they would have like implemented a rule too, where like if something won, like the same card could not win again. Like you can do something else in the line, but like if we do an Agumon, we're not doing an Agumon every year. Like we're gonna do something else. But you're right, like I kind of miss those ones. And they did like the special artist pack again this year. Like we got that really sick Lady Devi and stuff.
Yeah.
But like we didn't do another voting to my knowledge of like, trying to get more stuff.
Yeah. Not that I know of.
Yeah. No. But yeah, so kind of speaking more on Bandai, I think we can wrap up with I can't believe I'm like excited for another card game. Y'all know I play way too many. But in October we get Union Arena. Am I the only one who's planning to spend some unnecessary money on another game?
This is the Y Schwartz situation where I found out they had a Cowboy Bebop deck, and I'm like, well, I would have bought that if I knew. So that is me for Code Geass. There's a part of me that's like, Geass just sounds like, how do you make that a card mechanic? I'm so in.
That's fair.
I want to make you play cards that are terrible.
Yeah. So Frolly, your point, I actually didn't even know why Schwartz was a thing for one, and then I was dude, it was a late night. I was scouring TCG Player, came across a Last Airbender card. I'm like, what game does this belong to? Found it, and then just went down the rabbit hole. Right. So my thing for Union, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Okay. I won't get into why Schwartz because I don't know anybody who plays it. My locals doesn't support it. Like I'm only gonna play games that I can regularly play. Right. That's why I play Dragon Ball. I play Digimon. I play Pokemon. If Union Arena takes off and it has an IP in it that I can that I have a connection to, then I 100% plan on trying it out. Right. I don't know. Like we don't. At least I don't. Like I don't know how the game's gonna work mechanically or whatever. But I'm already technically count Fusion World as the second one or another one, but I'm 3 games deep into Bandai games, so I don't have an issue necessarily with their games. So I'd be open to trying it. I just, as of right now, I'm not. Please don't chastise me in the comments. I am not a huge anime fan, so it's hard for me to resonate with any of the properties. I know. I tried. I will say this. Because I feel like I did watch a little bit of Attack on Titan. I'm still kind of getting through that. So if there was something like that or whatever, but it's very minimal, right? So for me, it's yeah, Demon Slayer's cool. I know what it is, but I haven't watched it. You know what I mean? I know Agent loves Bleach, and that's one of the reasons why he's all about it. And I love that because that's the whole point you get into card games is because you connect with a character or a whole show or whatever it is. But if I can't do that, then it's really hard for me to even have the desire to want to play the game. So it's but then again, the game could be banging, and I'm I don't care what I'm playing. I can play this character. I have no idea who it is, but this game is amazing, so I'm gonna play it anyway. So I don't know. I have to wait till it comes out to find out.
That's fair.
I agree. I don't know what to do with Union Arena, but what's cool is I found a list the other day of every anime owned by Bandai. So what they could put into Union Arena because they own the rights of. So Cowboy Bebop is my #1 request. Please do it. I will play that deck and you will have my money. Done and done. But I laugh because I forgot about they own Outlaw Star.
Mm-hmm.
And they own Eureka 7. And My Hime I imagine would be popular. It was popular back in the day. So I don't know. I was are you ready to get your Bleach deck to get rocked by the K-On deck across? The more I go through this list, they own randomly one of the Tales of series, Tales of Abyss. I would do. They own Dot Hack. They own Ghost in the Shell. A Ghost in the Shell deck sounds so cool. They've got my money, and I'm gonna be really sad when it loses to Please Teacher, but
So, okay, this is. Yeah. I'm gonna probably have to take this back in the subsequent episode. I don't know any of these. I don't know any of these.
What? You know Mobile Suit Gundam?
I was gonna say that's the only one. So I was like, okay, cool. Give me a Gundam deck. I'll play that. But bro, I'm looking through S's, none. T's, none. Like I don't. And it's I'm.
Wait, you know Gurren Lagann, right? Come on. You don't animate. Oh, my dog.
Bro, Ghost in the Shell. You know what Ghost in the Shell is to me? Scarlett Johansson. That's not
Oh
this.
God. Okay.
No, dog.
Yeah.
That's Electra.
Yeah. So no. Yeah, I'm not. And again, I get it. Like it's
No
tough.
shame.
Like 'cause
Sorry, that was rude.
there's a lot of crossover between TCG communities, anime communities. Like obviously superheroes stuff for me. Like there's a lot of crossover between those. But I do think that to that thing, it's like, if you don't resonate with any of these properties, it's really hard to be like, dude, I'm super excited for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just look at. But again, you show me. No, okay, I lied. I see Tekken's on there. I know that one.
Mhm.
It's just the one movie. It's Blood Vengeance, which came out after Tekken 6, I want to say.
Yeah, but they've got all of Tekken though for Bandai. That's
Yeah.
Bandai.
Oh,
They
good.
they own Tekken outright.
I was about to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
You got me
yeah.
in another franchise.
Yeah. So okay, so I got two basically that I'm like looking through all of these. It's Tekken and Mobile Suit Gundam.
I can play Wolf's Rain and make people cry.
I can tell you guys all the stuff that's already out. That will come out. I don't know what the timeline will be for the U.S.
Yeah.
But in Japan, it's got they're already on the 1 year anniversary in Japan. Oh my God, they put Gamera in the game. Gamera is like Godzilla, but not Godzilla. It's like it's not done by Toho, but it's like a competitor.
Copyright-free Godzilla.
So yeah, basically. So okay, hold on. Let's pull up this list right now. Y'all, okay. Y'all think I love playing Dragon Ball? Listen. Union Arena to me, I don't even care if the game is trash. I'm gonna just enjoy collecting it at bare minimum. So where's the actual list? Oh geez, is this it? This is long as shit. Hold on. Products. I love how this is the Japanese version, but it's all in English. So
this has also become do your homework part where
all
we're
right.
just looking at other
So yeah, I know. So they've got Attack on Titan. They've got Shy, Yu Yu Hakusho. Ooh, that came out in April.
Ooh.
Okay. Black Clover, Haikyuu, Goddess of Victory, Nikki. I don't know. That's that mobile game people play. Dr.
yeah.
Stone, Sin Duality Noir. I don't know what that is. Toriko, Sword Art Online, Tekken 7.
Ooh.
I was about to say I saw the Tekken one. Yep.
Blue Lock, Gintama, My Hero Academia.
That's got its own card game.
Yeah.
What's it doing there?
Me and Roboco. Oh, that is. 1,000 Year Blood War got 2 different sets. That's good to know. I'm gonna
That's
open that
one
up.
of the few things I'm like slightly worried about, just because like Weiss Schwartz had this thing with Attack on Titan where like the show was so popular they made the first set, and then when the second set came out they just had more to go on. But these decks became so good because it was one of the few decks that got support
Multiple
because it had
support,
another
yeah.
set. Yeah.
That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Tales of Arise, Demon Slayer, the Idol Master Shiny Colors. I don't know how that is.
Oh wait, Slime also just did a Weiss Schwartz set.
They just double dipping everywhere. Hunter, of course. Jujutsu Kaisen, Code Geass. Okay, yeah, now we're rolling into the other stuff. But there's a lot of stuff. So
That's fair.
It's I think it's gonna be dope. I think it's gonna be dope. Some of this stuff I'm actually gonna try and see if I can get in Japanese, like some of the sleeves and stuff early, just to have over here. Just get it.
They're standard size.
The storage boxes and stuff. Because I already got my 1,000 Year Blood War sleeves for Bleach. But I gotta, yeah, of course. But yeah.
That's fair. Well, I mean, it's nice to actually look at this and be like slightly excited, because I feel like recently card games have been like, that's all my money. I'm out of money, but like I'm 4 commander decks deep now, which means that like I have enough to facilitate my own pod to teach people. That's also kind of felt like I've slowed down on. And then Digimon, the simulator has me making decks so much so that I'm not investing in them first and then like being like, I don't want to play this.
Yeah. Oh man, well, I'm gonna be prepared to be broke. It's fine. But I think, guys, we're almost at 2 hours, so I think we can wrap up for today or tonight.
So.
Unless anybody has any closing remarks to share.
Don't lean back on your chair.
Yes, that's probably better than my advice. Um, I think what I was just gonna tack onto your guys' point, we've echoed it in the last episodes. It's just like I think it's a good time to be a TCG player, point blank. I think regardless of what type of opinions you might have on companies and online simulators and new games and whatever, it's just a good time to be a TCG player. And we've said it before, there's just so much to choose from. There's not like we don't have just the big three anymore, whatever you people want to call it. Like there's so much stuff to play. There's so many different options. Even within games, there's so many different deck options and all this. It's like right now is the time to be a TCG player. And quite frankly, there's probably more access to playing with people than ever before because of the webcam component now of games that we've had. I mean, we've had it for a few years, but having that, like when I first got into Pokemon, that wasn't a thing, right? People weren't trying that. So yeah, I think ultimately it's just a good time to be a card game player. I think people just need to look at the positives rather than just only seeing like, oh man, I wish I had this and I don't. It's like, look at what we do have, and man, I wish people could look at it and be like, whether you're a longtime player or not, just like think about just 5, 6, 7 years ago in the same position, we didn't have nearly any of this. Like it wasn't popularized like that. So just man, I take solace in it as much as I can, no matter the saltiness or the frustrations I may have in the moment of playing certain games or certain whatever. I always take a moment to look back and be like, hey. Listen, I appreciate where we are as a quote unquote just TCG community. So I think people should just try to focus on that.
That's a good sentiment.
Yeah, my closing statement there.
I think it's a perfect closing statement. Y'all know we love ragging on Dan.
Anyways, you're under arrest.
Well, one of us already fell back in our chair, so that just adds to the but no, as always, appreciate you guys joining us, all coming together every month to talk about card games and nerd shit. So we'll be back again next month with more stuff, and hopefully we'll all catch up on Liberator, because there were I guess will be 3 different at least things for us to read. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in to episode 13, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.